It is the sweltering, humid summer of 1787. Inside the Pennsylvania State House, known today as Independence Hall, the air is thick with frustration. Delegates from 13 quarreling states are shouting, sweating, and threatening to walk out. The root of this chaos is the nation's original operating manual, the Articles of Confederation. Under this document, the individual states act like jealous, independent nations. They are printing their own distinct currencies, slapping tariffs on their neighbors, and flatly refusing to pay their share of the debt left over from the Revolutionary War. Before we look at how they fixed it, a quick word about today's sponsor, Shasta Unfiltered. They serve the North State with honest news, local events, and unfiltered entertainment. You can scan the QR code on screen to subscribe today. The national government has no power to enforce its laws or collect the taxes needed to stay solvent. As states arm their own militias against their neighbors, the United States is fracturing into 13 separate, competing territories. Amidst this shouting match sits a remarkably quiet delegate from Virginia. James Madison barely stands 5'4" and weighs less than 100 pounds. He rarely raises his voice, yet when he speaks, the room stops to listen. While many young men of his generation pursued military glory, Madison's frail health kept him off the battlefield. Instead, he immersed himself in the library at the College of New Jersey, now Princeton, mastering history, theology, and the mechanics of governance. All this intense study solidified a highly practical view of human behavior. He reached a simple conclusion: men are not angels. Because human nature is inherently selfish, Madison reasoned that you cannot build a successful government on the assumption that its politicians will have good intentions. Madison believed patriotic rhetoric would fail. Only a government with a rigid, mathematical architecture could withstand the pressure of human self-interest. Madison did not arrive at the Constitutional Convention empty-handed. He brought a pre-written, highly detailed blueprint called the Virginia Plan, which called for a strong national government. The core architecture splits the government into 3 competing branches: executive, legislative, and judicial. These branches overlap and interfere. If one branch grabs too much authority, the other 2 block it. He laid out this logic in Federalist 51. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. The system channels that hunger for power to fuel the republic. This system was never designed to create harmony. It was purposefully built to pit rival interests against each other, create gridlock, and prevent tyranny. Drafting these rules was only the first step. Madison now faced the monumental task of convincing a divided American public to accept them. He formed an alliance with Alexander Hamilton and John Jay, launching a massive public relations campaign in the New York newspapers. Over the course of 85 essays, known as the Federalist Papers, Madison laid bare the mechanical logic of his constitutional design to skeptics. Even with this logic, critics, known as the Anti-Federalists, refused to accept the system without explicit written guarantees of personal liberty and religious freedom. Sitting in the first Congress, Madison went back to work. He personally drafted the first 10 amendments and shepherded them through the House and Senate. With the Bill of Rights reinforcing the framework, Madison completed a blueprint for a self-governing republic. Fast forward to 1809. Madison is elected as the 4th president, and his architectural masterpiece faces an extreme real-world stress test: the War of 1812. The war finally reached a crisis when British forces violently breached the Capitol and set fire to Washington, D.C. Amidst the chaos, First Lady Dolly Madison stays behind at the burning White House just long enough to secure the iconic Lansdowne portrait of George Washington. Meanwhile, the frail, lifelong academic James Madison does something unexpected. He physically rides out to the battlefield at Bladensburg to rally the American troops. The war eventually ends inconclusively, but the survival of the American government proves a larger point. While the physical buildings of the Capitol burned to the ground, the abstract structural architecture of the Republic held firm. Finishing his second term, Madison retires to his Montpelier estate in Virginia, spending years organizing his convention notes for history. By his death at age 85, he had outlived all his peers, making him the final surviving signer of the Constitution. He left behind a nation operating on a republic of laws, not of men. Today, when the branches of government collide in gridlock, or the courts strike down an executive action to protect an individual right, the system isn't breaking. It is functioning exactly as the architect designed it.